Good evening, everyone. I am Prachi Pasalkar, and on behalf of Pune Knowledge Cluster, first of all, I wish you all a very happy Guru Purnima. And today we are all here to hear a very interesting talk or discuss a very interesting topic. The questions about which we are getting, when we were kids, that does aliens exist? What is there? Is our galaxy the only one, or there are more galaxies? What is our universe made up of? What about the planets and so on? So to talk on this very interesting topic, we have with us Dr. Ravi. And to introduce our speaker for the day, I would now invite Professor Ajit Kembhavi. Professor Kimbavi is the PI, Principal Investigator of Pune Knowledge Cluster, and he is the former Director of Inter-University Center for Astronomy and Astrophysics, popularly known as AYUCA Pune. Over to you, sir.
Sir, you are on mute.
Yeah, you're on mute, sir.
Thank you very much, Prachi. I'm very happy to introduce to you today Dr. Ravi Kopparapu, who's giving a talk on the search for alien life in our galaxy. Of all the topics that have to do with astronomy, and I suppose this is the most interesting topic. That shows by the number of people who are attending this talk. At least in Pune, it's a very, very wet evening. It has been a wet day all through. And I suppose the same where many of you come from. Now, Dr. Ravi is he's a planetary scientist at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center in Maryland. Now, not so long ago, a planetary scientist would mean that you studied Mars and Jupiter and Venus and Mercury and so on. But now, since 1995, after the first exoplanet was discovered, planetary science encompasses the thousands of exoplanets that we know now. It's one of the foremost areas in astronomy at the present time. And there are a large number of people, very, very young researchers, who are engaged in this fascinating topic. Dr. Ravi did his MSc in Pune University, and again, he again did it at Louisiana State University, which is popularly known as LSU. Then he did his PhD there in the same place. And at that time, he worked on gravitational waves, mainly from gravitational wave emission from white dwarf binaries. So later, he changed his attention to exoplanets, as I've already mentioned. And his research work now includes methods to identify those planets that could host biological or technological life on other worlds. I'm so proud to say that during his MSc days in Pune University, he did a project with me. So I now have two people simultaneously at the Goddard Space Flight Center who have been my students, Ravi Kopparapu and Dr. Subhashish Laha. So I personally believe that it's just a matter of time before we discover life outside the solar system, outside the Earth. Okay, extraterrestrial life. And I also believe that probably the first detection would be microbial life within our own planetary system, and which will quite soon be followed by all sorts of other very much more exotic discoveries. I don't see any reason at all, scientific or otherwise, why we should be alone in the universe. And there are 10 to 11 galaxies in the universe. There are about 10 to 11 stars in a galaxy like ours. So even if you take that to be 10 to the 10 each, then you are 10 to the 20 stars. And we believe now that every star must have at least one planet or maybe many more planets than one. So you're really talking about 10 to the 21 planets or so. And so why out of that very large number, only our Earth should have life is not clear to me. But I shall not say anything more about that and leave it to Dr. Ravi. And I'm sure that there will be a very good discussion at the end of his talk. Thank you very much. I should also say that he was a recipient of NASA's Exceptional Scientific Achievement Medal in 2020. Over to you, Ravi.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Kembavi. Thank you for the introduction, and several things you mentioned in your intro are some parts of my talk. So I'll go through them again. But thank you again for inviting me. This is an exciting topic, and I'm always happy to share my excitement with you all. I'm going to share my screen before we start. Can you all see my screen here?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So let me go ahead. Okay. So what I'd like to begin this talk by giving a brief points about what I would like to go through in this topic. I want to make sure that I leave enough time for discussion after this talk. So maybe we'll have at the most half an hour talk of this, and then hopefully we'll have another half an hour of discussion or so. That is my goal. And at the end, the reason why I'm trying to convey this kind of a topic and want to discuss this is because of what we are, where we are right now. I mean, this is unbelievable that we are in an era in the human history where we would be able to answer one of the oldest questions ever asked. And we are living through that era. We are in that history-making period where within our lifetime, we might know if there is life on other planets. And the fact that we are taking it granted that there are planets around other stars itself is such a change in our own thinking compared to what we have known before, just 100 years ago. Tells us that something, we are waiting for something profound to happen in the next few decades. More importantly, this is no longer science fiction. We are moving from an era of science fiction to actually doing science in this topic. And this is what I want to convey in this talk, that there are some unbelievable things I'll be talking about, and then even during the discussion, they're so fantastic that they really feel like we are living in a science fiction world, but they are not. We are actually doing them now. And so let's hope you are also excited as much as I am. So let's move on ahead with a very simple thing and start with something we know about. Earth is the right now only habitable planet and inhabited planet that we know of. When we are alive, we are on this planet. There are several organisms on this planet. So this is nothing new. We again take it for granted that we live on this planet. But when we try to, when we zoom out a little bit out of here and then look at our own planetary system, the solar system, this is standard stuff. Everybody from their school time knows this. There are a few terrestrial kind of planets. In the first 4 planets are smaller. The next 4 are kind of gas giants or ice giant planets, right? So this is a standard model of solar system that we thought about. And we've also thought about looking for planets around other stars, thinking that our other stars also will have the same arrangement of planets around them. Nothing wrong with it, because this is only, if you have only one example, you think that that's the example everybody and everything else will follow. If you zoom out a little bit more, we can see where our position in our galaxy is, and our galaxy is huge, and our sun is only a small speck of that particle in the whole galaxy. And there is a reason why I'm mentioning all this, and you'll see in a moment why. At least in this case, let me see if I can move this away. At least in this case, our galaxy, our own Milky Way galaxy may have more than about 100 billion or 10,000 crores of stars within it. And this is a number that we humans cannot imagine. We see this number and we just give it a glance and we just say, okay, yeah, 10,000 crore is a big number, right? That's good. That's right. And then the question then is what exactly are the kinds of stars we are looking at in our galaxy, and what kind of stars are out there. So this image shows most of the kinds of stars that we are familiar with. Ignore the letters at the bottom. We will come to that in the discussion session if you really want to know what they mean. Some of you may already know what they mean. Essentially, the point of this graphic is to show how our sun is faring in terms of the size compared to the other stars in our galaxy. There are bigger stars, larger size stars, and there are also smaller size ones. You may also notice something else in this picture, that the stars that are larger in size are also white in color. That's because they're hotter. As something is hotter, it becomes a little bit bluish and whitish. And the stars that are smaller than our sun are a little bit orangish or red in color because they're cooler than the sun. So smaller stars are cooler and larger stars are hotter. Okay, so that's great. Then the question is that, let's say if we give our galaxy some X number of stars, let's say we give material to the galaxy and say, hey, galaxy, can you make 100 stars out of this? What will the galaxy choose to make most of them? Which kind of star it will choose to make most of them? And here is that picture. And I don't have to even say anything over here, because you can just look at the colors and see what are the most number of stars, what kind of stars are the most number in our galaxy. There are more smaller and cooler stars than the hot stars. The yellowish ones here are somewhat like our sun-like stars. The white ones are larger and hotter ones, and the smaller one and the red ones are the ones that are much smaller than our sun. So if you give about 100 material to make 100 stars to our galaxy, it probably makes about 75 stars of smaller and cooler stars, and about 7 or 5 of them are sun-like stars. Just by the sheer number, there are more smaller stars than our sun-like stars within our sun's neighborhood. Again, we'll come to that at some point in the talk, why this is becoming so important. In fact, we can make a guess. You can probably see why this is becoming important, because if we are going to find planets around other stars, or if we're going to find life on other planets, probably there are more number of things that we can do around smaller stars than sun-like stars, because they are very rare compared to the smaller ones. So if we are trying to find life on other planets, we always think about sun-like stars. But most of the stars around us are not sun-like. So life will also, if we are trying to find life on other planets, there may be a different, have a different way of evolving. And so because their star is different, the whole, the source of energy is different. So we have to keep in mind when we are trying to find life on other planets. All right, that's great. So do these stars have planets? This is now a foregone conclusion. I know you've probably seen in the news and all, right? Well, before answering that question, do these stars have planets? Why is it important to know if there are other planets around other stars or in our galaxy? I always try to, when I have a question like this myself, I try to think about it this way. If we are inside our house and we can't see anything, we close our windows and doors and not hear a thing. If we are curious, and humans are curious, we want to know if we live in a house that is completely isolated. Is our house alone? Or are we living in a society where there are other houses that we can go and look for? And that's one reason we want to know if there is someone else or something else beyond our house. And because we always are curious, right? There is another reason also, and I think many of you are interested in this one, and even I'm interested in this one too, that why is it important to know if there are other planets? Imagine you move into a new neighborhood, okay? And you move into a new house, and you want to go and introduce yourself to your neighbors and say hi to them. But if you go and knock on the doors of, you see a lot of houses. but you don't see anyone there. You don't see anyone on your streets. You don't see anyone in your town, and you don't see anyone on your cities, but you see a lot of empty houses, right? This is essentially where we are right now. Where is everyone? We know we are here in our house, but we don't see anyone else anywhere else. We only see the empty houses is what we are thinking right now. This is analogous to what we are thinking about finding planets around other stars. We see lots of planets. Now we are in the process of trying to find if there is anyone on those planets or anything on those planets. And this is why it is we are curious creatures, right? So we want to know if there are more planets, and if those planets are habitable, or somewhat if there is anyone there that we could communicate with. All right. This is where the search for planets around other stars comes in. We call them either extrasolar planets, or I keep using the word exoplanet in this talk, just to have a shorter name for that. Exoplanets or extrasolar planets are these planets orbiting other stars. Fine, that's really good. And if we want to know how many of them are right now in our galaxy, and it has been going on for a while now, as Dr. Kembaby mentioned, the first exoplanet around a sunlight star was discovered in 1995, and there's a history for that. And I would really love to go through that, because that teaches us how humans are kind of have had a blind filter on them in terms of discovering planets, or in terms of discovering new things. We were expecting something else, and we discovered something else. And from there, we started finding more and more planets. So we'll come to that. If you are interested in this, we will come to that in the discussion session. So in the last 25 years or 30 years, we have looked at in one specific part of the galaxy, which is that yellow cone that you see here in this picture. And that's only about 3,000 light years in size. And some of you may know the whole size of our galaxy is about 100,000 light years. A light year is the distance traveled by light in 1 year. And so our galaxy is about 100,000 light years. Essentially means that it takes about 100,000 years for the light to travel from one end to the another end. In this case, that cone of that region that you're seeing is where we have launched some planet finding satellites, and that's the region where these planet finding satellites have looked in that cone and found about a lot of planets. And there is a reason why we have looked only for that in that region, because our telescopes are only sensitive to certain distance and certain brightness of the stars. Okay, so once the telescopes looked in that region, collected the data, we analyzed, and so far it looks like we found more than 5,000 exoplanets in that particular region of the galaxy. Okay, just in that small cone of it, about 5,000 of these planets of all types, different types. Then the question then was, okay, what kind of planets are out there then out of these 5,001? Here is the interesting thing. What we know, some different kinds of planets. I've shown you the solar system picture, right? So there are 4 smaller planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars, and then the 4 larger planets: Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. So what I'm showing here is Neptune that we know on the left-hand side, and Earth on the rightmost side. And most of the planets we found until now are in between these planets. The sizes are in between these planets. They are called mini Neptunes because they are smaller than the Neptune, or super Earths, or because they are larger than our Earth. And so they are in between planets. We found so many of them in that 5,000 planets or so. And we have found also Neptunes. We have also found Earths. We have also found Jupiters. We found hot Jupiters, the Jupiter-sized planets, pretty close to their stars, so they are very, very hot. We found all kinds of planets, including these things that we have no equivalent in our solar system. These kind of mini Neptunes and super Earths that are between the Neptune and Earth size, We don't have them in our solar system. Imagine, right? Until 20 or even 10, 15 years ago, our model of the solar system was this. We thought that the universe may have only these kind of planets. And once we launched the telescopes and looked for planets, and we found these thousands and thousands of planets, we found planets that don't even exist in our solar system, but other solar systems are able to, other star systems are able to make them and make many more of them, of these intermediate sized planets. So this itself is such a profound, such an important discovery, because this is telling, the universe is telling us something here, that your solar system is only a small part of a bigger picture here. Okay, so we have to keep in mind and carefully think about, if we are trying to find life on other planets, carefully think about how we can understand this and try to discover life on other planets. So because we looked only in one part of that sky, I've shown you before, right, in the small cone, we won't be able to see the whole galaxy, because we just don't have the technology to look at the whole galaxy at all. And so what we did was we estimated that, okay, we know how many stars are there in our galaxy. We know how many planets we have seen, and we can kind of estimate how many planets we might be missing. And as Dr. Kembe mentioned in the beginning, we found, to our surprise, almost every star in our galaxy has at least one planet around it. If there are 10,000 crore stars in our galaxy, that means there are at least 10,000 crore planets of all types: Neptune's, Uranus, Earth's, Mercury's, Venus, Jupiter's, everything, and at different distances from their star. So we have many thousands and thousands and crores of planets around in our galaxy. So that's a really important discovery. This may sound very normal to everyone right now, but 20, 30 years ago, this was not the case. We had no idea if there are planets outside our solar system. We thought our solar system was the only place where we could have these planets. There were people who were looking for it, but they haven't found any until that time, 30 years ago. So this itself is a really, the fact that we are taking it for granted right now is really a sea change in our understanding of planets and stars. Okay, so here is the important question that we all wanted to know. Okay, fine, there are thousands of crores of planets, right? So are there any potential habitable planets that we can look for life on them? Absolutely, there are potential habitable planets. I'm not saying they're habitable planets, and I have to make a distinction here. Maybe I have not done that in my first slide. I talked about Earth is the only habitable planet and inhabited planet. There's a distinction there. Habitable means that the conditions are there for life to exist, but the planet may not have life. It is not inhabited. An inhabited planet has both habitable conditions and there is life on them, right? So if you see the title of this slide, it says, are there potential habitable planets in the galaxy? Which means there could be possible conditions enough for life to arise. And are there any such planets where there are possible good conditions for life to arise? Yes. There is this definition we use, something called a habitable zone, which is that it is the distance from the star of a planet where a planet could exist, where liquid water on the surface can be possible. Why liquid water? Why only on the surface? Why not on the below the surface? If there is liquid water below the surface, there could be life there also, right? All great questions. If we are going to just focus on this question of habitable zone, if the planet is too close to the star, it becomes too hot. If the planet is too far away from the star, it will be too cold. So there is a right distance from the star where it is, good conditions. Our Earth is in the habitable zone. And by the way, Mars is also in the habitable zone, but there is no flowing water as far as we know continuously on Mars. So just because a planet is in the habitable zone, that it doesn't mean it is habitable, right? It also needs to have the right size to maintain an atmosphere for the planet. And so if you have this kind of a habitable zone, and we want to have surface liquid water only because on Earth, we have liquid water on the surface. And if we have liquid water on the surface, there could be life on the surface as well. And if there is life on the surface, that life might be doing something and emit some gases, not the pollution gases that we are talking about. The life itself will create some gases like methane and so on that we can observe remotely with our telescope. Why remotely? Because these exoplanets are so far away, we don't have the luxury of sending spacecrafts or probes to the systems, right? To far away exoplanets. We have that luxury to send to Mars and look, dig the dirt, or go to Europa or Jupiter and, measure something over there. We can send them because it's within our solar system. But for faraway solar systems, we always look for liquid water because we cannot, we can observe them only remotely. Okay, and so that's why we want to look for this kind of habitable zone planets where liquid water can be on the surface of an exoplanet. Okay, great. So how common are these habitable worlds? When I say habitable, these are the planets within the habitable zone of the star. They are at the right distance from the star, not too cold, not too hot. So how many of these not too cold, not too hot planets are out there, according to whatever the estimates? If you combine, if you think about all kinds of stars, the cool stars and sun-like stars, at least it is estimated that there are about 2 billion or about 200 crore potential habitable planets in our galaxy. That's an estimate. Remember again, just because a planet is in the habitable zone or of its star doesn't mean that it is completely habitable or it is inhabited. We actually have to look at the planet and see if there is life on them. So right now we are estimating that there could be about 200 potential habitable planets in our galaxy. So which means there are so many of them out there. We have so many targets that we can probably go and point our telescope and to see if there is any kind of life over there. Okay, that's the question we are going to ask. How do we find if these planets have alien life on them? First of all, we need to build good telescopes to look for signatures of life on it. Now we made the first step. The first step is to discover the planets. Okay, now we know there are thousands and thousands of planets. The second step, all right, now we know there are planets. Are there habitable zone planets? Yes, there are lots and lots of habitable zone planets. Great, step 2 is done. Step 3, how do we find if these habitable zone planets are actually habitable? Well, now we are in the process, we're trying to build a telescope to look for signatures of life. This is how we are progressing as a humanity to find life on other planets. We are going step by step to see where we can find this life on other planets. All right, we want to look for signatures of life using these telescopes, right? Okay, what are the signatures of life? How do you know when you look at a planet that there is life on it? So here is a question I think we have to think a little bit carefully about. What kind of life are you thinking about? Are you thinking about biosignatures, which means the signatures of biological life? So there on Earth, on the left-hand side, you will see oceans, you will see vegetation and other things on our planet. All this creates some kind of a biological activity, a cycle, right? And that can create a biological signature that we can actually use telescopes to find this biological life. This is the one that Dr. Kembe mentioned about microbial life, or even complex life like animals, plants, birds and everything. We can't see all those things with our telescopes, but they generate some kind of a gas that we could potentially look with our telescopes. Okay, that's one way of looking for one kind of life. There's another kind of life called techno signatures, technological life. That's us. Techno signatures are the signatures of technological life or industrialized or civilizations. So, for example, in this animation, you'd see the city lights of a civilization, which is us. So we can also look for pollution. We can look for city lights. We can look for radio communication. That's one way of looking for advanced civilizations. So when we are looking for signatures of life, we are trying to look for these different kinds of different ways and different kinds of life on other planets. And there are, by the way, efforts going on right now to discover both kind of life with our telescopes. And the one important aspect that we really want to remember is that Earth was not the same in the history of our solar system. So about 300 crore years ago on Earth, there was no oxygen, but there was life, right? But right now, Earth has oxygen and life. So when we are thinking about finding, if someone says, or if I'm saying to you, I want to find Earth-like planets, and then you'll say, okay, great. Which Earth are you asking about? Which Earth do you want to find? Well, then there are different ways, different Earths through the time we can look for. Earth was habitable and also had life over the last 3.5 billion years ago, right? So, all right, if Earth had so much life before, Earth at 350 crore years ago, there was microbial life, but there was no oxygen. It was habitable. Are you trying to find that kind of Earth with our telescopes? Earth at 50 crore years ago, there was complex life and no oxygen. Okay, are you trying to find that one? Or are you trying to find the kind of Earth where dinosaurs existed 10 crore years ago? Or are you trying to find a technological life and a biological life together existing as it is right now? And then if I say that I want to find Earth-like planets, these are all the questions we want to answer. And even better is that if we are trying to find this kind of life, we are trying to build telescopes to look for all kinds of Earths. We are trying to find Earth from its beginning stages of life to even now. And not only that, because we are not restricted to one star, not like sun-like star. We are going to find, we are trying to build telescopes where we can look for these kind of habitable and technological life and biological life planets around all kinds of stars, different kinds of stars. And so imagine the diversity of life we will be able to discover. Even a better question, will we be able to recognize a life that is so different from our own, even if we discover one? So that is a big question. So here is another question. There are some more questions. If there are so many crores of planets that could be habitable, where are the aliens? Why did we not find any kind of life outside Earth until now? There are some answers to that, some ways to think about it. So essentially the question is, where is everybody, right? Okay, here are some points that we can go through. Why are we not hearing from anyone or anything? First of all, maybe life is hard to arise. Maybe it is so hard on all these planets that life is not common. So only some few planets are able to produce life, just like Earth. Maybe there's one other Earth or something else out of these crores and crores of planets. You know, I'm not a big fan of that, because statistically there has to be more than few thousand or something, more than Earth to find life. Life is hard to arise. Maybe we don't know. Until we find, we don't know. The second point that could be possible, that why we will not be able to discover life until now, is intelligent life is probably not common. So the point here is that, okay, microbial life may be easier to come on a planet, but for that microbial life to become a complex life and then to become a intelligent life like us, or like elephants or dolphins, it might be difficult. So there is a point where every planet, it can evolve to a microbial life, and that's it. It cannot evolve to an intelligent life. Maybe few planets can do that, like our Earth did. I don't know how common it is. We have only one example, that's Earth. The other one is, why haven't we heard from anyone else? Well, they want to be anonymous. They just don't care. I mean, they want to just do their own thing. Unlikely, because there might be, if there are so many thousands and thousands of crores of planets, there must be one rogue civilization or one rogue alien life that will want to contact it, right? So I don't know why we haven't been contacted. So maybe that may not be the entire reason. The other one, the other reason is it is hard to communicate and it's a little bit expensive, right? So imagine if you are sending a signal to communicate with someone in the nearest star system, it takes many, many years just to send a signal and then wait for them to respond. Will take many more years to come back. So, it's hard to communicate with them like that, and even harder to travel. To give you an example how hard it is, if you use our current technology of spacecraft, the fastest known spacecraft we have ever constructed right now, and if you want to go to the nearest star to us, which is the Proxima Centauri, about 4 light years away, with our current technology, it will take about 70 or 70,000 years to go there. So if that technology, if that's that far, well, that's impossible for us right now. Maybe there are some advanced civilizations that have discovered how to do this. But if that is the case, that it's really hard to travel. Maybe that's why we haven't heard from them. The other one is they don't want to interfere with us. They think, okay, let's this civilization, humans be a little bit more mature. This is a reason I really like the other one. We did not search long enough. That's great. Here is an example. If I go to any of these Pune bus stops, and then I wait there only for 2 seconds, and I come back and I ask Dr. Kembavi that, hey, Dr. Kembavi, by the way, I waited for 2 seconds at a Pune bus stop, and I haven't seen a bus there. I don't think there are any buses in Pune at all. And what does Dr. Kembavi will say? He'll say, hey, look, no, you have to wait for a long time. And that's when you will see more buses. That's exactly what we have to do. If we are going to look for alien life on other planets, we need to look for long enough, because long enough civilizations, if they exist, we will be able to discover them. We have to spend more time. The other one is great filter argument, which is there is always every planet may have maybe evolving microbial and coming up to a complex life, but there comes a time where everything collapses for whatever reason. All of them die away. Unlikely again, because there are so many of them, at least some of them will survive. The other thing is that we are not listening properly, which means that many of these civilizations are trying to communicate with us, but we just are not understanding what they are saying, or we are not even able to recognize what they are going to say, what they are saying there. So these are some examples of why we are not able to discover advanced civilizations right now. But that doesn't mean that we should stop looking for them, because now we know there are planets. Now we know there are habitable planets. It's our need now to look for these biological and technological life. So I'm almost going to be at the end of my talk right now, and I want to show you what we are trying to discover from Earth. This is a picture taken by, many of you have probably seen, this is a picture taken by Voyager 1 from the distance of Pluto. Voyager 1 spacecraft flew to Pluto, turned around, and took a picture of the Earth. I think some of you may be able to find Earth in this picture. It's a very tiny dot. Right now, I'm giving this talk on that tiny dot. Right now, you're listening to that talk on this tiny dot. Right. So this is what we are trying to find with our telescope. Even worse, we are not even will be able to see this if we are trying to find another Earth. They will be so far away that we will not be able to even see that in this kind of a picture. So this is kind of what we are planning to do, and it is possible now to find these kind of planets and look for life on these planets. This image, I put it in the last moment, just a few days ago. James Webb Space Telescope, the follow-up telescope of for Hubble Space Telescope, released this deep field image. You have seen this kind of image probably from the Hubble Space Telescope as well. That James Webb Telescope pointed towards one part of the sky and stayed there for a long time to take this picture. And there are thousands and thousands of galaxies in this picture. And the size of that sky part that James Webb was looking is what I've shown here with my finger up there. It's the size of a grain of a sand on my finger. That's the region of the sky that it was looking. And within that region of the sky is where there are so many thousands of galaxies are there. Dr. Kembavi mentioned in the beginning, there are about 10 to the 11 galaxies, and there are 10 to the 11 stars for each galaxies. imagine the possibilities of planets out there. And so because it's so huge and so mind-boggling, we have to first focus only on, it becomes so overwhelming. We have to first focus only on our galaxy right now and try to find how many planets are there, what kind of planets are out there, and how it is important to, how we can look for these nearby planets and find life on them. And I think I can say with confidence that the question of are we alone is that the answer is not if we will be able to find life. It's a question of when. And I'm very confident that within our lifetime, we will know if there is alien life on other planets. I would like to end here and like to open up for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ravi. It was such an interesting talk, and such interesting topics were discussed about alien life and galaxy and all. So we have a lot of questions here. I'll pick some of them.
Okay.
So we have a question from Prabir, and he's asking that as we know that sun will turn into a red giant and subsequently into a white dwarf, can life survive during this process? In this process where the planets are evolving, etc.
There is a possibility that the planets can survive, and if given, a white dwarf can sustain for a long time. Time is the one thing that universe has, which we don't have, right? So if you're asking if there is a possibility of life evolving on white dwarf planets after the sun becomes a white dwarf, absolutely. And I'm not saying it will happen, but there is a chance that if you give enough time, there might be a chance that the planets might evolve life. Some white dwarf may even, at least. It is interesting you ask that, because we are writing a proposal now where we are actually writing in the proposal how to look for planets, biosignatures on planets around white dwarfs. So thank you for asking that question.
Okay. So the next question we have from Sri Hari, and he's asking that is there any size and position based guidelines to planets, especially the exoplanets, as Pluto is marked as a dwarf planet now? And how do we classify them from asteroids and other cosmic objects?
So the definition of a planet has been a bit of a debate. Right now, there is one particular definition that the International Astronomical Union uses, which makes the Pluto not a planet, but it's called a dwarf planet. And if you follow that definition, then exoplanets are also not planets, because according to the definition, all the planets have to go around the sun. And so it's there are other star systems also have asteroids. Other star systems also have dust and other kind of things around them, just like our solar system. So yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So we have next question from Saroj, and the question is that can there be other type of life contrary to what we understand life as on Earth? And if so, aliens may be of other type. In that case, how do you define a habitable planet in galaxy?
Right. So there is almost for sure other kinds of life that we may not be aware of, in the sense that there are so many planets out there. There might be habitable conditions out there. The question is, will we be able to recognize that kind of life? Because if we are always looking for Earth-like life, and you may ask, why are we looking for Earth-like life? What if there is another life that is not Earth-like? Well, we can't recognize that. Imagine, this is an example. You're invited to a party, but you don't know many people over there. It's a new thing. So you go there. What is the first thing you do there? The first thing you do is to go and find someone you know, so that you can start, chatting with anyone else who is new, right? That's exactly what we are doing. We are trying to find something we know first, which is Earth-like life. And then once we know how slightly different that kind of Earth-like life is going to be, then we will know, this is how maybe the other kind of life might be looking like that. So when we try to look for life on other planets, we'll start with Earth-like life. And there is, of course, going to be other kind of life, and we have to be open for that.
Thank you. So there is one more exciting question. Since yesterday there was an image given by James Webb Telescope. So there is a question regarding it, that can JWST detect signatures of biological life on exoplanets? Yeah. So he has read that it can detect the atmospheric composition of exoplanets.
That's right. James Webb can look at the atmospheres of exoplanets, some exoplanets, and there are some data that came about yesterday. The question of whether it can find life on these planets is still to be decided. There is one good target that it can look at, but it depends upon how common life is and how bright the life signal is. So our instruments, the universe gives what it gives, right? The universe doesn't care about our instruments. It just says, okay, here is all different kinds of life. It is our need to build instruments to find the life that the universe is giving us, right? And so with James Webb, we can look, if we are trying to find life, or if James Webb is supposed to be discovering any kind of life, that life has to be really bright in the sense that high signal, and probably a little bit in the wavelength region that James Webb is looking at. So we will wait and see in the next few years. If we get lucky, we definitely need to get lucky with that, though.
True. We have one more question. We have time, so we can take few more questions. So we have a question by Advaith, and he's asking that, sir, could alien life be based on inorganic chemistry, maybe silicon based, which is more tolerant to extreme conditions and depend on totally different mechanism for survival? Maybe, feeding on minerals, heat, radiations, etc.
So this silicon-based life question comes up all the time. According to what I talked with some of my biology colleagues, it is hard to actually make that kind of life, because carbon and silicon, they are in the same group. Carbon can form carbon dioxide, a gas, or other compounds, gaseous compounds like methane or something, that can flow through, easily flow through the biological organisms to carry, either energy or information or whatever. So it has that capability to easily pass through a biological organism. Silicon is actually, it's not a gas, at least not the temperatures that we can exist. And so to have a silicon-based life, it will be in a solid, the silicon is a solid form, and to transport that within a biological organism, a solid thing, like silicon dioxide, for example, just like carbon dioxide, I don't know, and at least my colleagues said they don't think it might be possible, because it will be really hard to think about how you can transport, a solid silicon stuff to make a metabolism work. So maybe this is humans. That's what we think. It may not be possible. Universe is far clever than that. Maybe we'll find it.
Yes. So we have one more interesting question from Vasant, and he's asking that, sir, in our solar system, planets are aligned as first 4 of them are rocky planets, and then we have gaseous and then icy planets. In our solar system, that is the alignment that is followed. Is it constant for other planetary systems?
Absolutely not. In fact, we haven't found a single solar system like ours, our star system. Maybe this is a time I can quickly see the story of exoplanets. Can you all see the screen, or am I still sharing?
Yes, we can see the screen.
Okay. So this is the story of the exoplanets, right? So to answer that question, no, none of the solar systems that we have found are like our solar system. In fact, like I said, not a single one we have found like ours. And the reason for that is how we are detecting them. Initially, when we were trying to find these planets, Jupiter takes about 12 years, right? So we thought, how about we look for Jupiter-sized planets around sun-like stars? So we started looking for this kind of planets. And the first exoplanet we found was this. A Jupiter-sized planet very close to the star in a 4-day orbit. So to give you an idea, Mercury, the closest planet in our solar system, takes about 88 days, about 90 days to go around the sun. This planet, the first exoplanet ever discovered around a sun-like star, takes 4 days, and it is a Jupiter-sized planet. And we have found several of them, several hundreds of them. And then we found many other kind of systems, very big planets, small planets, everything like this. So yeah, there are definitely, the universe is really telling us something here that, there are wide variety of planet systems here. So
okay, so next question we have from Abhirup Pathak. There are a lot of questions. I'm selecting, few of them. There are many questions.
this is what I want. So
yeah. So we have a question from Abhirup Pathak, and he's asking that, is Moon also in habitable zone?
yes, that is an excellent point. Moon is around the Earth. If Earth is in the habitable zone, Moon is also in the habitable zone. And that is an excellent example of a planet. If you think Moon as a planet, a solid round object, that's an excellent example of where a planet is in the habitable zone and not a habitable planet. So yes. So you need to have the right, not only the right distance from the star, you need to be at the right size. Because if you don't have the right size, you can't hold on to the atmosphere, and the atmosphere just goes away. So what's the point of being in the habitable zone, the right distance from the star, if you don't have an atmosphere, right? And so you need to have the right size and the right conditions and the right distance to be in the habitable zone. By the way, Venus, here is an example. Thank you for asking this question, actually. Venus was in the habitable zone of the sun quite some time ago. And Mars was not in the habitable zone, but had liquid water on its surface flowing many hundreds of crores of years ago. And so at some point in our solar system history, we had at least 2 potential habitable planets, or maybe 3 if you count Mars and Venus as well together, right? So Venus, Earth, and Mars. There were at least 2 potential habitable planets in our solar system at some point. Imagine if you swap Mars and Venus, their locations, and keep Earth as the same, right now we would have had 2 habitable planets, because Venus is big enough size to hold on to its atmosphere, but it would have been a little bit colder. That's fine. But Mars lost its atmosphere because it's a small planet and it couldn't hold on to it because of the sun's radiation. So if there were any systems out there which are just like Earth and Venus within the habitable zone, there might be more than 1 habitable planet per system. So there might be even more habitable planets that we can think about.
That's really interesting to know.
Yeah.
Yes. And we have a question from Kanishk Singh. What are the chances of finding life on Alpha Centauri?
Well, not on Alpha Centauri and Centauri, actually. Alpha Centauri is a star, so we may not be able to find life on Alpha Centauri. But if you're asking if there is a planet around Alpha Centauri, then we are looking for planets around Alpha Centauri. And if the planet is at the right size and again, right distance, then, we will have telescopes looking at it. As far as I know right now, there is no planet around it, or we have not found any around that.
So actually, maybe this must be our last question. I'm actually combining 2 questions. It means the same mostly. AI in astronomy, or can we use AI in astronomy to find out aliens? And the second question related to this is, have we ever sent signals to communicate with alien life in the space?
I'll try to answer the first question. If you're asking if the artificial intelligence to find alien life, well, we are starting because we don't have the data yet, right? So maybe some radio communication SETI searches. SETI is the search for extraterrestrial intelligence with radio communication. Maybe they might be using it, or or some others, but there have not been, from what I know, from what I can tell, because it's a data, we need data for that. So once our telescopes go up, collect the data, then we can start looking for this, kind of apply these AI methods. And the second question is, what was the second question?
Yeah, the second question was that have we sent any type of signals to communicate with alien life?
Oh yeah, we did. So there is a whole bunch of, there's a whole field called Techno Signatures, which I'm part of right now. Yes. So a short answer to your question is yes. We have sent some signals to some stars for radio waves communicating, saying that okay, we are here and all. There are some ways to see that we don't have to have a radio communication to look for aliens, because think about this. We are now trying to build telescopes that can look at the atmospheres of planets and look for life, look for technology, look for whatever, right? It has nothing to do with radio. So it doesn't matter if they are communicating with us or not. If we can build a telescope, they must have already done it. If there are advanced civilization, they already know we exist. So there are some ways we can look for technological life on other planets without the radio communication as well. But if you want to communicate with them, then yes, maybe you might want to do a radio signal. There are other ways to communicate too, such as you can do laser pulses and send some kind of a code or something. And even other ways of doing communication too. If you build a large structure around your star, and as the structure passes in front of the star, it blocks some part of light, right? And so that apparently is also another way of communicating to someone who is observing this star and say, hey, look, some structure is blocking. So, and you can decode it based on how the structure is going around it. This is actually a field of work that several people are doing right now. And so, yes, there is a possibility that there is always a possibility that we will be able to communicate. We are communicating, but we don't have to restrict ourselves to finding advanced civilizations with only radio communication. We can also use telescopes to look for industrial pollution. We can look for big structures. We can look for laser pulses. We can look for even probes, just like we are sending Voyager and whatever the probes we are sending outside our solar system. There might be other civilizations sending probes to our systems as well. And so we can look for these probes within our solar system and see where they come from.
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. And it was really a very interesting talk. Many of the questions which participants were asking, these were some questions which I also had at some point. And yeah, thank you so much. It was really an interesting talk. Okay. On behalf of Pune Knowledge Cluster, I thank you. So I would just request all the participants to kindly fill the feedback form which is given in the chat box. And also, can you just put on your videos so that we can take a group photo of this session? Yeah, please switch on your cameras. We will take a group photo. Dr. Ravi, can I just request you to stop sharing the screen?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sorry, my camera is not working.
Yes, sir, no problem.
Someone has a question.
Team, let me know when.
Thank you everyone. Thank you.
Yes.
Someone raised a hand. Is that a question? Or?
Okay, yeah, I'll just check. Yeah, Subhanvita. Okay, Subhanvita,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah.
Ma'am, actually, I'm a 10th grader and I'm a beginner to astronomy. I would like to further pursue my studies in it. So could you please suggest some courses or stuff so that it can improve my skills in astronomy? Or if sir could do that.
Yes, Dr. Ravi, Ajit sir, Disha, would you like to?
I suggest that she send mail to me and Disha.
Yeah.
And then we'll answer.
Yes. So we will have some email IDs in the chat box. Kindly email to that. Kindly email your question there. We will be happy to respond. Yes. Okay. All participants, thank you for joining. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ravi, for such a nice talk. And maybe you can give more talks for the PKC in the coming months.
I'd love to. This was fantastic. Thank you for inviting and organizing this. It was always great.
Okay. Thank you. We shall close.
Yep. See you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.